Today, let's just have fun. Let's piss some people off. Let's just drive some people nuts. Let's guess, let's speculate, and predict the next big ship. Now, I know there's automatically going to be some people who are going to be like, oh my God, no more ships. No, don't. Because they're just going to keep selling ships, and it'll take longer and longer and longer. We know they're going to make more ships. We know that this is going to happen. I highly doubt that you're going to turn around tomorrow and Chris Roberts is going to post a video like, yeah, you know what, no more new ships. Does anybody see that happening? No. We know that we're getting more new ships, and to be honest, the next big ship is kind of, I think, self-evident as to what it's going to be. The Kraken. In fact, the more that I thought about it, I said, you know what? I think it's weird that, the Vulture came in. It was number one that people voted for. The Starlifter, which was another idea that a lot of people liked, which wasn't number one. A lot of ships have kind of come out of that, even though the Starlifter ended up being Crusader Industries instead of being Drake, as it was originally kind of sold to us. Though, obviously, the ship that we got and the ship that they originally talked about were very different. A lot has come out of that kind of meeting, and one of the things that I had said when they hosted that video segment, as I said, that every ship that they're talking about on that show is a ship that they are already willing to build, because they wouldn't risk suggesting something that they did not want to build, right? That would be completely obvious. Why, put up a ship there that you had no intention of ever building? So things like the Corsair, I think, are a pretty obvious possibility in the future, but I think that the next big ship really is going to be the Kraken, and I would even go so far as to say that we're probably going to see it at CitizenCon, and if not at CitizenCon, then probably at the anniversary sale, though I would not be surprised if both the Corsair and the Kraken turn up at both of, during both of those sales. The Corsair, of course, being kind of Drake's version of the Constellation, though slightly different in terms of armament. You can go back and watch the video segment, or you know what, I'll do another show. I don't know, maybe tomorrow, talking about the Corsair. But we're talking about the Kraken right now, and when we learn about quantum travel, and we've learned about, oh my God, 8 stops between this planet and that planet, and there's a lot of people who said, no, that makes sense. And yeah, from a logistical point of view, from a logical point of view, it totally does make sense. The problem is from a gameplay point of view. Because, the first 2 or 3 times, kind of fun, kind of cool idea. Oh yeah, we got to stop, we got to get fuel. But then it becomes like you're like a dad driving a car on a long trip, and your kid constantly has to pee. And you're just, oh my God, really, again? You feel like you're never getting anywhere. And think about it from a capital ship that's being escorted by fighters' point of view. You're constantly having to stop unnecessarily from your point of view to get fuel for your fighters, which for them is quite necessary, and it's just stop, go. And so there's been talk around the idea of balancing it. Oh, maybe only one stop, so on and so forth. And I get the logical reason for it to exist in the universe, to make the universe feel more real and immersive. But the truth is, try to think of it from a gameplay perspective. And I'm not talking about the first few times that you do it, but a month later, 2 months, 6 months down the road, when that shit is no longer so much an immersive part of the experience as it is a pain in the freaking ass. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things that up front that we think are really cool, really interesting, but as we kind of play with them in the game, they start to become annoying, and they kind of take away from the fun. And in the end, fun is kind of what brings you here in the first place. Now, I'm not saying that my point of view on this matter is correct. Not at all. What I'm saying is it's something to be considered, because what is correct is different for every person who plays the game. Some people might argue for total convenience and quality of life over immersive gameplay. Other people might argue for completely immersive gameplay no matter the inconvenience. And I'm kind of one of those people that kind of travels down the middle of that road. But I recognize that there are going to be people who want that level of realism, who want that kind of, that hard set reality, these logistical problems that people are going to have to solve to move over great distances. There are people who are going to want that there. And I think that the Kraken would represent a way to bridge that gap if done correctly, or correctly from my point of view. Let me say it that way instead. I think that with a ship like that, if you build it a certain way, you can, like what we had heard is that it could carry up to 8 fighters, or I believe it was 2 freelancers as well. It was going to have a fair amount of space, and some, CIG had mentioned, like a space truck stop, like in what's it? How did I lose the name of that movie out of my head all of a sudden? Spaceballs. When you're thinking in that context, it's sort of like these platforms at the end of the movie, just sitting out there with a little diner in it and all that. I don't think that they were talking about it so much as realistically they just want it to be a bunch of floating platforms, but I think that figuratively that's kind of what the idea that they had in mind. And I think that if you build it off of that framework, like if you use something close to a traditional carrier shape, just smaller, more focused on an open interior, a basic engineering section, and like a command and piloting section, you can, in effect, deliver a ship, especially if you take the problem of weapons and you instead remove most of the weapons from the ship except for point defense weapons, like something much smaller than you would expect a ship of that size to have if it were something else, right? Not what it is intended to be. And focus instead on giving the ship supreme armor, supreme shields, just incredibly powerful shields and armor, but otherwise making it a ship that can't really be used offensively except for the firepower that it carries within it, being the fighters and freelancers, or however you decide to fill that ship up. If you deliver a ship that is defensively very strong but offensively very, very weak, something that you'd never think to frontline it. You would be like, no. I mean, think of it not even so much as a comparison of, say, like a light carrier or an escort carrier in today's world, but something more almost like a car ferry that would travel across a small strait in the ocean or something like that delivers cars to one side or the other. Something more along the lines of that, though something that's defensively quite strong. Something that can't just simply be obliterated like a ferry obviously would in a military operation. If you can deliver something like that, something that's very Spartan, something that's very basic, very industrial. Once again, it's a Drake ship, so you can do that. There's a lore reason for that. And if Drake is building a ship like this, the UEE might say, oh my god, that could be used as a carrier. But if it's very weak offensively, that could be kind of used in the lore to balance against that argument. And if they build it really Spartan and really basic on the interior, then you could kind of say, well, this is Drake rushing to get a ship out there to fill a needed segment in the market. And the ship's overall construction reflects that. It's not a bad ship, but it's a ship that was very obviously not built around the idea of, oh, let's have a flowing promenade, and let's put some fountains and some nice trees in it. We're not doing an 890 jump interior. We're doing a Drake interior. I think if you deliver along those lines, that you can bring in a ship at a very, you can keep the cost down very aggressively. You can keep that price point way down there. You can kind of deliver a solution to the problem of, for people who just don't want to make 8 or 2 or 4 or however it works out, stops between one place and another. You can kind of get them to group up, or even hire a pilot who has one of these ships to ferry them across. Interesting possibility of, you know, a job in there. And you could deliver the ship fairly cheaply, because once again, it's not an offensive ship, and it's not, strictly speaking, a career-oriented ship. You know, it's not a miner, it's not a salvager, it's not a research or exploration vessel. It's just a ferrying ship, though objectively it's quite strong in terms of defense only. So you kind of fulfill that desire for a pocket carrier without having to create yet another capital ship that's very heavily armed that you now have to balance against everything else. I think that an argument obviously could be made for the ship, because, well, I'm making it, but I could see a reason why this ship would exist in the universe, and I kind of like the idea of it. I mean, obviously, we're going to get more ships. We already know that that's a thing that's going to happen. Just saying, if it's going, you know, if this is going to be the ship, this is kind of how I would like to see it brought into the universe. But once again, that's my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Anyways, that's the show. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.